The Hatha Yoga Pradipika says that the way to increase the flow of prana in Sushumna is through this technique called Pranayama. And Pranayama is, means a number of different things, but in its most basic meaning is breath control. And the point of this breath control, then, of elongating the breath or stopping the breath, all of these approaches, different ways of controlling the breath. The whole goal of pranayama is to move prana from the side channels into the central channel. And the point of moving prana is to have these subjective experiences. So it's actually, the point is to have these thoughts. The point is not just to say, to take a picture and say, oh, prana is there. The point is that of the thought that is connected with the prana. Because what you want is to have this yogic experience of wisdom that is associated with getting the winds to enter, stay, and dissolve at the central channel. Master Swatmarama says that the constant, continual, and correct practice of pranayama activates sushumna. And what he means by that is that it allows the prana to move from the side channels into the central channel, because you are deflating the side channels' knots, basically. You're releasing the knots. And so that's what releasing the knots at the granthis, or releasing the granthis at the chakras, the knots, means that you are deflating the prana in the side channels that are causing those knots. And the approach then in the Hatha Yoga Pradipika, because it's an outer method to increasing the flow of prana within the nadis, is to purify the nadis. And now we're getting to what we promised was the theme of tonight's talk, which is purification of the subtle body. The Garan Samhita says that when the nadis are full of impurities, Vayu does not enter there. And before then, Master Swatmarama says, before commencing any program of pranayama, it's first important to purify the nadis. So any imbalance in the doshas must be removed. So the excess body fat, the phlegm, you need to, and the mucus need to be removed and the balance restored in all of the different systems. And so you have the famous shat karma that are the outer method for purifying the subtle body. Dauti, Basti, Neti, Nauli, Vastrika, Kapalabhati, Tratika. So these are the famous outer methods. And these are methods. This is what Theos Bernard's teacher taught him as his first yoga practices, was Dauti, how to swallow a 30-foot long, 4-inch wide strip of gauze to remove excess bile from his stomach, and how to do that while in headstand, in fact. So what his whole approach was, the classical Hatha Yoga approach of the outer method, was becoming a master of all of these outer shat karmas. And it's quite a rare thing in yoga practice now, in Hatha Yoga practice, to see real masters of this approach. But Master Swatmarama points out that there are actually two different opinions about the necessity of doing these. So he goes into great detail. Hatha Yoga Pradipika goes into great detail in how to undertake the outer methods, the outer purification methods. And then he says, well, there's a real division of opinion about how necessary these are before you undertake pranayama. Some Hatha yogis say that it's absolutely necessary to balance the doshas using these outer methods, swallowing the gauze, agitating or revolving the recti muscles with nauli, being able to do all of these and master these before you begin pranayama. So that's the one approach, that you have to really master all of these outer shatkarmas, or the outer method of shatkarma, before you undertake pranayama. Because the whole point is to increase the flow of prana within the nadis. And to do that, you have to expand, you have to get rid of the impurities in order to allow the prana to flow there. He says the other opinion, though, is that you can undertake pranayama directly, and that pranayama itself is the way of eliminating these impurities in the nadis. It's very interesting then to figure out, try to understand what these impurities really are. We call them phlegm, bile, or mucus, or whatever, and that it's necessary to balance the doshas. But Master Swatmarama answers this question, saying that it's our lifestyle, our diet. What he says is that these impurities in the nadis are waste residue that result largely from our lifestyle, our diet, and our desires, our anger, and our emotions. So it's very easy to see that our lifestyle and our diet are largely the product of our thoughts, and our beliefs and our desires, especially. What we eat, what, healthy and unhealthy, is based largely on what we desire and our thoughts. So really what Master Swatmarama is saying, that the impurities that we want to and that we need to purify in the subtle body are the product of mental activity. They're the product of our thoughts. They're the product of our mental afflictions. And this is why Tibetan tantrikas use an inner method of shatkarma. So you shouldn't think of these impurities in the nadis that you're trying to purify as some sort of cholesterol plaque or something that you're going to get, it's not like arterial sclerosis or something, and you get whatever that procedure is where they ream out your arteries in order to open them up to prevent strokes and things like that. And I think that's the common image of what these impurities in the nadis are. So it's not like a plaque. What it is the residue of our habits of thinking. These are the impurities that we really need to attack. And that's why, because what we need to purify are the residues of our thought, this is why in the Mahayana approach, it makes perfect sense to attack the impurities with thought. Because what you want to eliminate is negative thought. And so it makes perfect sense to attack it with the mind itself. And this is why also the yamas and niyamas are so important because we're controlling our lifestyle by consciously modeling virtue, what to take up and what to give up with our practice of the yamas and niyamas. So this is, again, you can think of the yamas and niyamas as a subtle body purification practice. But in the Mahayana approach to purification, the antidote that you apply to the residue created by our mental afflictions is you have to apply the ultimate antidote. And that is, you apply the understanding of how things don't exist and how things do exist. Because it's the residue is all related to this mistake. And so when we can bring the winds, we can open up the channels by eliminating the mistaken view that things do have qualities of their own, and that I can actually possess these qualities by possessing the object. And by analyzing and understanding this in meditation, using Raja Yoga meditation techniques, you then have a very profound impact on the subtle body. And this then has a positive feedback effect on the thoughts, because the thoughts purify the vayus, allowing more prana to flow. The prana then flows into the central channel, and you have powerful realizations then of the way things do and don't exist. And so this is why it's so important to use both methods simultaneously. Why it's necessary. You really jumpstart the whole pranayama practice of getting thoughts into the central channel by first of all doing analysis using Lam Rim techniques of trying to understand the mistake that you're making with every act of your perception, basically. The mistaken view that things have qualities of their own, that things exist as something other than a mental image. Now it's said that these pranayama techniques have to be practiced systematically and cautiously also. And Master Swatmarama goes to great pains to point out how some of the pitfalls of pranayama practice when it's done improperly. And the Kundalini literature is filled with all kinds of horror stories also, of things that can happen, demons that possess your mind when pranayama is done improperly, or Kundalini is awakened too early before it's really mastered and before Sushumna is purified. So it's something to be approached with great respect and with a degree of caution. But it is something that should be done because it's very powerful practice. So you do it with respect for its power and make sure that you're prepared for it. And it's also important to do it under the guidance of a teacher. And this can really then, because they can see what's going on and they can then instruct you on the antidotes. There are pranayamas come in a couple of different varieties, or 3 different varieties at least. The balancing, vitalizing, and tranquilizing pranayamas. And especially the vitalizing pranayamas are best left until after you have mastered the balancing pranayamas, because the vitalizing pranayamas can create great amounts of heat, inner heat. And these then, if your nadis are not open, or if sushumna is knotted and there's no place for the prana to go, this then can begin to create problems. And in our Tibetan meditation tradition is filled with a lot of commentaries, and we get a lot of oral advice from our lamas who had experience in 3-year retreat with this phenomena called lung. And this is why in Geshe Michael's direct lineage, pranayama is just not talked about a great deal because of it's not really encouraged as a practice of its own so much because of the potential for lung. But so it's lung just is this. You can think of it as a kink in the fire hose. You know, you've got great amounts of prana. If great amounts of prana are activated and the granthis are not loosened, or the knots are not released, you can have all kinds of physical symptoms, such as heart palpitations and mental symptoms like anxiety and sleeplessness, and it's extremely uncomfortable physical sensation, this sensation of constriction at the chest. And it can, if you allow this to go untreated, or if you don't take remedial methods, this can be really debilitating for your practice, especially because you're just not able to sleep and you're just filled with anxiety. So it's something to really be watchful of and avoided. And the basic approach is that you apply, it's like your foot on the gas pedal, and you want to apply intensity in your practice to take you right up to the edge of lung. And then when you are beginning to feel some of these symptoms, you back off. Because as Geshe Michael always says, if you develop lung, it is a failure of your practice. So because it can be so debilitating that you want to avoid it at all costs. But you want the intensity. You want the intensity of your practice. You want to move prana, but you don't want it to be this pathological experience of lung. So it's best to begin, and we'll be doing very shortly here a balancing pranayama practice that includes both the outer and inner methods of purification. And so it's very, Nadi Shodhana is a very essential balancing pranayama, and this is a good one to start with, rather than the vitalizing, the heat-inducing pranayamas, until you have loosened the knots. And a very basic, fundamental guide to avoiding problems with pranayama is to just have a very simple ratio. You talk about the ratio of inhalation, exhalation, and retention. And so to begin with, you can just avoid retention altogether and just have a 1-to-1 ratio of inhalation and exhalation. And then when you begin to add a retention to your practice, then do that also in a 1-to-1 ratio. So for instance, a very basic 1-to-1 ratio would be to inhale for a count of 5 and exhale for a count of 5. You inhale for 5, exhale for 5. And then after you get very comfortable with that, then you could add an inhale for 5, retain the breath for 5, and then exhale for 5. And then you may do, when your teacher then gives you instruction to move on from that, you might do a 1 to 2 to 1 ratio of 5 counts of inhalation, 10 counts of suspension, and again 5 counts of exhalation. And there are, in the pranayamas that Dharma Mitra has taught, every pranayama has a different ratio. So some of them you really focus on the exhalation, so it might be a 1 to 1 to 2, etc. But these are all things that your teacher should give you instruction on. So Nadi Shodhana, the Nadi Shodhana that we'll do, will be just a 1 to 1 ratio. So we'll do 5 counts of inhalation and 5 counts of exhalation. So I would like to, before we actually do this pranayama then, which is our Mahayana version of Nadi Shodhana, I'll just talk you through it first. The first thing that we do, of course, when we undertake a pranayama is to really focus on your posture. The first thing that you're aware of is your posture, because you want to have your spine straight. So you want to be sitting erect, and that can be either in a chair or on a comfortable cushion. But the important thing is that your spine should be erect. And then you visualize the central channel. The next thing is, next you visualize your body, your inner body as being hollow. And just this blue sky color. So it's spacious and empty like the vastness of the sky. Your posture is erect, your inner body is empty and spacious. Then you visualize the central channel running from your, in this case, we simplify things. It's running just from your crown. So rather than the Ajna chakra, it just runs from the crown at the top of your head down to your navel. And because this is a tantric text, it's thin, like a stalk of wheat or something like that, about that diameter. And it's radiant light. So it's translucent, you can see through it. And it's a golden crimson color. Then alongside that, you visualize on the right side, running from your right nostril, the ruddy red opaque color Pingala, the right side channel. It starts from your right nostril, runs up to the top of your skull, then inside, and then down right alongside the central channel. And remember, the central channel is where your spine used to be, directly in front of where your spine used to be in this hollow body of yours. And then the ruddy red, opaque pingala runs down alongside the central channel. Its diameter is wider. It's about the size of a McDonald's drinking straw. And it comes down then about 2 finger widths below the navel chakra, and then loops back up and makes a U, and comes back up and then joins the central channel. And you visualize on the left side then, from the left nostril, the milky white, opaque Ida running up to the top of your skull and then back down alongside the central channel, 2 finger widths below the navel chakra. It loops back up and joins the central channel then. And you visualize then that all of the impurities of your ignorant disliking run in your right side channel, Pingala. So this is all of your thoughts of anger, of hatred, if you experience that anymore. Or probably more likely just aversion. It's things that you want to get rid of your life because you don't like having this thing in your life, so you want to get rid of, you think by getting rid of the object or the person, you'll get rid of this thing in your life that you don't like. So that's, all of that runs in the right channel, those thoughts, and they take the form of a black smoke. Then in the right channel, it's our craving, our ignorant liking, our grasping, believing that if we possess an object, it will give us happiness just by having the object. So it's the grasping, the desperate craving to have something because we believe that it will, because of the mistaken view that happiness lies in the object rather than as a mental image. And so this exists as a dense smoke also. And before we actually begin this then, I'll talk you through the mechanics of the inhalation and exhalation. You, first of all, would inhale from the top of your crown chakra through the central channel, through both nostrils. And you would be inhaling just this pure, bright, luminous prana down to the navel where all 3 of these channels meet. And you will be blocking either your left or right nostril with the ring finger and thumb from your right hand. And you can just position your hand at your face in front of your nose. So it's the ring finger of your right hand will close off your left nostril, and then your thumb will close off your right nostril. So first of all, we'll be inhaling through the central channel pure luminous prana through both nostrils. Then we'll be closing off the right nostril with our thumb and exhaling out the left nostril. And as we exhale to a count of 5, we'll be visualizing that we are exhaling all of this smoke, which are the impurities of our ignorant liking, our grasping and craving. So all of this will be leaving through our left nostril as a pencil-thin stream of smoke that continues out to the wall of the room and then just dissipates out into space. So that channel now is purified, and then we would, still with the right nostril closed, then we would inhale through the left nostril to a count of 5. And now we are inhaling, because that channel is already cleared and purified, we'll be inhaling pure prana, pure luminous prana. Again, it comes down to a count of 5, down to the Triveni, the place at the navel where all 3 channels connect. And then this pure prana that we've just inhaled through the left, we switch nostrils then. We block off the left nostril with our ring finger, and then exhale through the right nostril. Again, exhaling this stream of smoke, pencil-thin stream of smoke, that is the representation, it's the visualized, it's all of our ignorant disliking. So it's our aversion, our anger, our hatred. All of that is visualized as this pencil-thin stream of smoke that leaves through the right nostril, continues past the wall of the room, and then just dissipates out into space. Then we will inhale again. So with the left nostril still closed, we inhale then again through the right nostril. Now we're inhaling pure luminous prana again to a count of 5. We bring that down the right channel to the Triveni again, and then we release our nostrils, and then we exhale up the central channel, but we don't feel like it's coming out our nostril. It just kind of, to a count of 5, it just disappears and comes all the way up to the top of our crown, and then just kind of leaves our crown slightly. But it basically it just stays inside. We just exhale into our central channel. And then, so that's one round. And then we start all over again. Our hand is at our face. We inhale through both nostrils, pure luminous prana, down to the Triveni, block off the right nostril, exhale out the left to a count of 5, stream of pencil-thin smoke carrying all of our negativities that lie in the left channel, all of the ignorant liking, the craving. Then we inhale. Again, pencil-thin stream of smoke goes out, dissipates into space. Inhale pure luminous prana through the left, down to the Triveni again. Switch nostrils, exhale through the right. And we exhale then this pencil-thin stream of smoke out to the walls of the room, and then it just dissipates in space. Inhale to a count of 5 again, pure luminous prana, down to the Triveni, then release both nostrils and just exhale up the central channel. And there should be this sensation then, as you are exhaling up the central channel, the feeling that you will have, the bodily sensation, will be bliss. There'll be some suggestion of bliss, because that is just what happens when you get prana to enter the central channel. The thought is wisdom, but the feeling is bliss that you get. So you just feel this glow of bliss as the wind then enters the central channel. And it just kind of, you exhale into the central channel, and it just kind of fills the central channel, and just a little bit of comes out the top. Is that clear? Ready to give it a try? Mm-hmm. Okay. So take your position on the cushion. Your spine is erect. And if you make any adjustments to your posture that you need, or get a new cushion if you need to. One of the most important things about your meditation posture is just that it's comfortable. You don't want to be distracted by aching knees or sore back. Now, first of all, visualize your inner body. You've taken your erect posture, your spine is straight, which means that your central channel and your two side channels are straight. And then bring your awareness inside your body. And there's no flesh at all. It is just pure blue, empty space. And then within this empty space, visualize first the central channel. Crimson gold, the size of a stalk of wheat, but made of radiant light. It's translucent. Runs from the crown of your head to your navel. And then beginning at your right nostril, visualize Pingala, the opaque red side channel that runs from the right nostril to the top of the head, and then alongside the central channel down to 2 finger widths below, and it loops up and joins the central channel. And then visualize the Ida channel beginning at the left nostril, runs to the crown of your head and down alongside the central channel to 2 finger widths below the navel, and it loops back up and joins the central channel. And then prepare your hand to block your nostrils so that you can block the left nostril with your ring finger of your right hand and the right nostril with your thumb. And then to a count of 5 heartbeats, inhale through your central channel, pure luminous prana. Block the right nostril with your thumb. Exhale through the left nostril to a count of 5. A stream of pencil-thin smoke. Inhale through the left to a count of 5. Pure prana. Switch nostrils. Block the left. Exhale through the right to a count of 5. A stream of black smoke. Pencil thin, it dissipates. Inhale pure prana to a count of 5. Through the right. Down to the Triveni. And then exhale up Sushumna to a count of 5. Bliss and wisdom. Second round. Inhale through both nostrils. Pure luminous prana down the central channel. Block the right. Exhale to a count of 5 out the left. Inhale through the left. Switch nostrils, block the left. Exhale out the right. Inhale pure prana through the right. Release and exhale up Sushumna to the count of 5. Bliss and wisdom. Third round. Inhale. Count of 5 through both nostrils down to Sushumna. Exhale. Block your right nostril. Exhale out the left to the count of 5. Inhale through the left nostril. Switch nostrils, exhale out the right. Inhale through the right nostril. And exhale up Sushumna. Bliss and wisdom. Go ahead and do 2 more rounds now on your own. Okay, you can open your eyes whenever you're ready. Yes, Amy?
Sorry, is it better to ask a question afterwards?
It is afterwards now.
I was just wondering if because usually the central channel is the width of a drinking straw in my, training. And so are the side channels in this visualization the same diameter as the central channel, or smaller or bigger?
No, so the central channel is smaller than the side channels. So you see it oftentimes it's not the size of a drinking straw. So sometimes you might see it as a cocktail straw or something like that, and the two side channels are a drinking straw. And in the Tibetan text, usually you see it as a stalk of wheat. In one particular text that I was consulting over the weekend, a tantric text, the side channel is described as the width of a horsehair. So it's a smaller thing, and so it's essential that it be smaller than the two side channels.
What would be an example of a tranquilizing? Because I feel mellow, big time right now. What would be an example of a tranquilizing pranayama? And is it traditionally recommended that it would be after the vitalizing pranayama?
I don't know, actually. How you just described those. So out of the many 50 or so pranayamas that are described in there, I haven't looked at the categorizing of them because this basically is a pranayama practice, aside from other pranayamas that to do as part of my tantric practice. But so I haven't made a real systematic practice of the Hatha Yoga Pradipika, 3 types of pranayamas. So you can consult the text for that. Or perhaps Lilia can tell you.
I was thinking of Ujjayi as tranquilizing, but...
Yeah, maybe.
I'm grateful that you didn't pass around gauze and have us all. I got a little bit nervous there. But I was just curious, did Theos Bernard, after he was exposed to the Tibetan teachings, did he ever change his ideas about the purification practices, like the physical ones that he was doing?
I don't know that he changed his ideas. It's interesting, well, he probably did, because among the 30 shelf feet of documents that I consulted for this book is the entire curriculum from of 2 of his institutions, the American Institute of Yoga, and then the, what do they call it? The Pierre Health Studio or something. And I don't believe he was teaching that to any of his students there, those outer shatkarmas. So it appears that he did change his opinion about the value of doing those. Yeah. Yes?
I'm just wondering, I've had this question before, and I guess I forget. I don't know if it's being too literal, but like envisioning the central channels, or I mean the side channels, is that reinforcing a construct that we don't want, because we want them to dissolve? So by envisioning them, we're habituating ourselves to seeing them, and we want them to dissolve.
Well, it's okay in particular practices to see the side channels, to use them in the way that we are now. But the one thing that we don't do is visualize the side channels as knots wrapping around the central channel.
Okay.
So it's when we do use the the side channels, they're just straight and supple, and they're not creating granthis with the wraps around the central channel. Yes.
So I have a question about the chakras in terms of the yogis of yoga and the Tibetans. Very different.
Yeah.
So where is the common ground? Where do the two circles overlap of the respective chakras?
Well, I think that it's in the release of the granthis is the whole point still of the practice. So in order to, and starting from the lower ones and releasing the knots going up. So yeah, there in the different systems there are different numbers of chakras, and that it seems like the Tibetans in the Tibetan Tantra don't go into detail in the way that the Hindu Tantras do about what aspects of personality, for instance, are related to particular chakras. And what they basically, the Mahayana approach is that these are just big problems. That it's basically what you want to do is just to focus on releasing the knots. So it seems like it's a simplified, the Tibetan system is a simplified version of that, except the heart chakra, except for the heart chakra. Well, that's not quite true, because there are systems of Tantra where you focus on particular syllables, all the petals and different syllables on each petal at the chakra and all of that. And then, but even within those tantras, they'll say, well, you can do that if you want as a hobby, basically. But it's not essential. You can just focus on a particular seed syllable there. So it seems like the emphasis, that's probably where they are most distinct in their approach, is in the chakras, I think. But both seem, the whole point is to release the granthis. Yes?
Do you think that the breath ratio could kind of have an effect on if the pranayama is more balancing versus moving into those later stages of being like, what word did we use?
Vitalizing?
Yeah, revitalizing or tranquilizing.
Yeah, I don't know. I think part of it is the rate at which you do them. If you're doing, that's clearly vitalizing the Bastrikas and Balabhatis. But I
Because
don't
I was
know.
just thinking of Nadi Shodhana, like working with the retention and stuff could really make it almost a tranquilizing pranayama if you kept the ratio consistent.
Well, I think there's definitely a tranquilizing feeling that comes from it. And then you can also add, so when you get to a point of wanting to add a retention, when you feel very comfortable with a basic inhalation and exhalation, what I do is visualize a flame at the navel. And so then you would inhale, and then as you're retaining, this flame blazes up. And then it's the power of that flame then that you're exhaling out the left channel that blows out the smoke. And so you can add that inhalate or retention there as a flame. And then also when you do a complete pranayama, or when you become very accomplished, there is also sometimes a retention added at the end of the exhalation. And those are the ones to be really cautious about. Because those seem to be especially lung-inducing, adding the retention at the end.
At the end of the exhalation?
At the end of the exhalation, yeah. So,
It's very anxiety
Yeah.
producing because it simulates
Okay.
death.
I've heard Geshe prescribe against the opposite.
The opposite.
that
Prescribe
way.
against holding retention on inhale
Right. Same.
because of the retention of the pranavaya
Right.
could create
Well,
lung. And he says if you're going to start with retentions, I've heard him say, start with retention on exhale.
at the bottom.
Yeah, so you can see there are a lot of different opinions on all of this, and basically you just want to be very cautious. The retention of the inhalation is a basic part of most pranayamas. And Geshe Michael and Lama Christie are extremely cautious in their approach to teaching pranayama because of disabling lung, that they went at it very aggressively in 3 retreat without the guidance of a teacher to give them day-by-day feedback. And so what Geshe Michael and Lama Christie say is they went at it very aggressively, focusing on the length of retention, and that so they developed cases of lung that took a long time to get over. So they're very cautious about that. And most pranayamas then will say that it's after you've developed, that the retention after an exhalation is the last one that you would add. So you can see that there are different opinions about that. And that's why you just need to, you don't want to embark on pranayama from a book. You want to find a teacher who just has a comprehensive program of which pranayama is just a part, and then just follow their instruction. Yes?
Do you feel like the bandhas have an integral role in the purification of the subtle body?
Say more about that.
My training and my understanding is that at least Uddiyana is applied throughout the physical practice of the asanas, specifically vinyasa practice, and especially if you're practicing pranayama, because in a sense your body is like a container, so the mula bandha is like the base, and then I think of the sides as like Uddiyana, and then the top is like Jalandhara. So if you don't have a top and you don't have a bottom and you don't have sides, how do you contain that which you're cultivating and directing and dissolving?
Yeah, so that's one thing that as you would get into a suspension or retention of the breath, that's one of the things that you would add would be, first of all, the light bandhas, Muladhara, and then Jalandhara also, and then and Uddiyana. So it seems all 3. So, and then that's one of the other instructions that your teacher would give you is when you engage the bandhas. So you'd inhale, suspend, and then apply the bandhas. Then release the bandhas first, in the opposite, so that you would release the bandhas before, and the Jalandhara bandha first, I believe you release that first, and then Muladhara last, before you exhale slowly. But those are just all things that are really, beyond the scope of an evening like this, and that you would want to just get very, personal instruction from your teacher as part of your comprehensive program of, attaining the highest goals of yoga. And what Geshe Geshe Michael always, and what the Hatha Yoga Pradipika also say, is that the suspension, kumbhaka, is just kind of a training for what the big event is, and that is the Kevala kumbhaka, which is this spontaneous suspension of breath. So, I mean, it's one thing to get very good. Theos Bernard is said to, he was able to suspend his breath for 6 minutes, and there was, he talks in the book, he recounts episodes of guys yogis that he met in northern India who could do it for 3 hours, but they felt that like they were beginners because somebody really accomplished could do it for days and things like that. But the point is that it's not the real goal is not just to get to lengthen the time of suspension, but it's to have this spontaneous Kevala kumbhaka, because that's what happens when you get the winds to enter, stay, and dissolve at the heart chakra in the central channel. You just stop breathing. That's the Kevala kumbhaka, and that's because the winds have stopped. And there's no more breathing for a time, so that's what you may notice at some point in your practice. Since you start to visualize whole mandalas within this tiny drop at your heart, and deities and things within, so you've got this small little thing, and then it said that when you bring your awareness, your sense of visualization smaller and smaller, that it gets sharper and sharper, actually, the smaller and smaller, that you make the scale. So it could be related to that. It could be that it's related to the fact that you see descriptions of particular things that you're visualizing in your central channel as the size of a grain of rice, and that it could be that the size of the central channel then is kind of seen as being a size relative to accommodate that thing that is given a particular size that you're visualizing. I don't know. Could be. Yes.
Is that the pranayama that we did, is that a recommended practice like prior to a meditation, or is that a meditation on its own?
Yeah, so that it could be either. It's often a prelude to asana practice, actually. So that is a nice thing to do to start your practice. I think that, a Nadi Shodhana is a really beautiful part of meditation practice. So I do pranayama before meditation. It's especially valuable, I think, for distraction. If your mind is naturally prone to distractions, it's very helpful because it really quiets your mind. And then if you're dull, if you're doing so if you're doing a period of retreat or something like that, distraction is kind of taken care of by your environment, because that's the whole point of going into this one room. You're eliminating distractions. Then the big challenge becomes dullness. And so pranayama then can become a great antidote. That's one thing I use as an antidote to dullness in meditation. And you can do that if you're within one meditation session also, if you're doing an hour meditation and especially if you haven't gotten enough sleep. You can do pranayama that's invigorating and kind of wakes you up and is an antidote to dullness. Yes.
So you mentioned that ideally we should use these practices at a level of intensity that pushes us to the edge of lung, so to speak. But then the question, a logical question would be, okay, so let's say one does that, how does one sort of push that edge along further? I mean, I suppose naturally that edge moves along on its own as one progresses over time. But eventually one would like to be able to increase the intensity of these practices to the point where one can do them very intensely without getting lung, right? So I suppose practicing the yamas and the niyamas and the 6 perfections of wisdom and so forth would help to sort of push one's edge, where that edge is, which is, I guess, individual for each individual, but to sort of move the edge further.
Yeah, I think that you do that. You can maintain your intensity without getting lung, and push harder without getting lung by releasing the knots. So it's the kink in the fire hose that causes the problem. So what you want is to just unkink the fire hose, basically, so that you can apply the full stream. And then, so it's basically your mental afflictions that cause the kinks. The mental afflictions are all based on a mistaken view of how things do and don't exist. Your intensity, I think, the intensity that you apply in your daily practice is going to result from your motivation. Why are you doing these practices? And so if your motivation is that you have been fortunate enough to study with a teacher who has really made you believe that it's possible to get enlightened in this lifetime, you don't have a problem with intensity in your practice. And especially then if you're studying Lam Rim and you realize that I have everything I need to succeed right now, but it's going to end. This is a limited engagement. Then you feel this intense sense of urgency to make use of every moment. So I think that's it all depends on your motivation and this sense of urgency that you bring to it. That's what, and I think that when you aren't feeling intensity in your practice, it's because of complacency. I think you stop believing, basically, that this is going to happen or that it's possible. And you might get discouraged. But that's a natural rhythm within the whole cycle of practice. But that's just why it's helpful why it's so essential in the first step of the Lam Rim is finding and serving a teacher, because it's living with a teacher, being in their presence. First of all, they can model for you exactly that enlightenment in this lifetime really is possible. And then they can just guide you through all of the rhythms, keep pushing you. And that's where intensity comes from too. They keep pushing you out of your comfort zone where complacency just naturally grows. Well, thank you very much. I've kept you a half hour past, and I appreciate your patience in staying. I hope that it was beneficial. Thank you.
Thank you very much.